I'm in Shenandoah National Park, and this is the Loft Mountain Wayside. This is mile marker 80 down in the Southern District. Yep, there it is, my little red car. And I'm down here in the Southern District. I'm going to be hiking north on Skyline Drive for a short distance and then make a right-hand turn and hike up here in the mountain looking for the Ivy Creek Shelter. And then we're going to continue on to the Appalachian Trail and basically hike it back down that way to the Loft Mountain Campground, which is over there, and then down the access road back to here and cross the street. So hike around a great big loop. The elevation here is 2850. Tenth of a mile into my hike, the Wayside is up there to the right. On the other side of the street is a trailhead for Patterson Ridge. I've already done that hike several years ago, so you can find that on my channel. Well, we're going to go down this old road here and then turn right and start hiking up towards the Ivy Creek Shelter. Okay, well, as soon as you come down that little gravel road there, start looking to the right and you'll see this. There's a concrete signpost there, and if you read the band, it says head this way to the Ivy Creek Spring, and so therefore that's also going to be where the Ivy Creek Shelter is. So here we go. Half a mile into my hike, the elevation here is 2920, and this is the Ivy Creek Shelter. It's been converted into a maintenance area for PATC, so you can't actually stay here anymore, but there is still a spring here, and you can see it's running pretty good. And then I'm going to continue on that way. That way it takes me back up to the Appalachian Trail. And the service road coming up from Skyline Drive is over there. That's where I came from. So anyway, this is the old Ivy Creek Shelter. I'll give you a write-up of this history of this thing. It's kind of interesting. I think it was put in the 1960s. Before that, there was a shelter about a mile north of here where the campground used to be, called Big Flat Shelter, which is that way. So first there was Big Flat, then they tore it down, and then they built this one, and then they closed it. Pretty nice flow coming out of the spring. There's a trail here. I guess it rained here last night. 6/10 of a mile into my hike. I'm up to 2970. That's where I came from. Down there in that hollow is the Ivy Creek shelter. Boy, that was pretty wet and swampy through there. I guess it's the headwaters of Ivy Creek. But anyway, came up this way, and when you hit this signpost, you turn to the right. And we're going to head south on the Appalachian Trail right here. And I think it's about 3 miles. We've got to climb the mountain for a while here. It's going to be 3 miles from here to the campground. .1 miles into my hike. I'm up to 3,200 feet, and this is the first of several overlooks. This one's looking off to the east. The other ones will be looking off to the west, but this one's looking to the east. So this is 3,200 feet. This is near the summit. The actual, see if I can do this without falling off. The actual summit's over there to over there, but the trail doesn't go directly over the actual summit. .2 miles into my hike. The elevation is 3180, and a potential camping zone here off to the left. There's where I came from. I'm on a slight descent right now, so when you're coming down, look to the left here, and you'll see this area here. It's kind of overgrown right now, but later on in the fall, I'll step back in there and get a few shots. Later on in the fall, this would be fine. It'd be perfect for hammock camping too. Lots of trees. Yeah, so out there's the trail, and you got some brush to pick up, but it looks to be pretty flat. I don't see any soggy spots at the moment. And believe me, I walked through a few soggy spots coming up here. So this is not too bad. Plenty of trees for hammocks. Over there you've got a windbreak up against those big rocks if you need it. So some possibilities here. I'll mark it on the map. .7 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 3280, and this is another overlook. This one's looking to the west. That mountain in the background with the real sharp peak to it is almost straight ahead there. That's the end of the Massanutten Range. Down there in the green, you can see a little sliver of Skyline Drive coming coming down from the north. That next hump over there is Loft Mountain. And I believe you can get to this overlook either from the Appalachian Trail or from the Frazier Discovery Trail, which brings you up from that way. It's a fairly large overlook here. It's a little windy. I'm not sure if you can hear what I'm saying or not, but anyway, here's what it looks like. Pretty nice view from up here. So over there's that big overlook I just showed you. You come back and you cross over the trail, and right on the other side of the trail is this big potential camping area here. See this? In fact, there's all sorts of grass laying here. Cut yourself some padding. .8 miles into my hike. The elevation here is 3,300 feet. And here's a third overlook looking to the west. So this one's just a little bit south of the second one. A slightly different view from here. Right across the trail from that third overlook, there's this third camp zone, but it's pretty overgrown right now. So the other ones are much better and better cleared out. So not so good right here for camp spot number 3. As soon as you get past that third overlook, around the bend you'll see this signpost here. If you go straight, that's the Appalachian Trail southbound. If you turn right, this is the Frazier Discovery Trail, which will take you back down to the, let's see how far it is. Well, it doesn't exactly, let's see, it doesn't exactly say. Loft Mountain Wayside, a half a mile. So from here I can get back to my car in a half a mile. But I think I'm going to go ahead and it's pretty early in the day still. It's only 11 in the morning, so I'm going to walk the AT for a while up to the campground. 3.1 miles into my hike. The elevation is 3140. I'm getting ready to turn off the AT. Back there's where I came from. It's an uphill climb. And when you get to here, look at the band, and it says that the Loft Mountain Campstore is right up here. So I'm going to go up here, past the Campstore, and then turn right and follow the trail up there back down to the parking lot, to the Wayside. Now the AT, I'll have to look at the maps when I get home. The AT used to come over the mountain right around in here somewhere, but after they put the campground up here, and there was a shelter up here, big flat shelter. But when they put the campground in, they took out the shelter and they made PATC reroute. This AT now does a big loop around the campsite. So anyway, we're going to turn right and head up here to the Campstore. .2 miles into my hike, I'm up to 3,200 feet again, and here's the Loft Mountain Campstore. It's just 100 yards off the Appalachian Trail, so it's a stopping off point for AT thru hikers. They've got gear in there. I've never been in there, but they've got camping and hiking gear, and I think they even have showers. So anyway, here's the way you come up. You go right past it, it'll be on your left, and then when you get to this signpost, you turn right and head back down the side of the mountain, back down towards the parking lot and the Wayside. It's about a mile. That's one of the few water fountains in the park I've come across that's actually working. Well, there's a bench along this path to sit on, but it needs a little maintenance. And through the trees there, looks like a water tower. Well, it's sitting on the ground, but we're still somewhat higher than the Wayside, so it's probably at least 100 feet higher than the Wayside. And that road there, that's not Skyline Drive, that's the road coming and going to the campground. Okay, let's just keep on going here. This is a map of today's hike. The quadrangle name is McGaheysville, 1999. And I hiked a loop hike. Instead of an out and back, I hiked a loop. And the purpose was to visit the Ivy Creek shelter and to do a little hiking along the Appalachian Trail. This red line is Skyline Drive. And I parked at the Loft Mountain Wayside, which is located right here on the west side of the road. This is about mile marker 80. I got out of my car, hiked north on Skyline Drive for a short distance, and then you look to the right for just basically a dirt road going off to the right. And you go down there and you'll see a concrete signpost that says Ivy Creek Spring. And you follow that road up the side of the mountain to here. And what you'll find here is you'll find the shelter, which is actually not used as a shelter anymore. It's been converted into a maintenance storage depot for the PATC trail maintainers. There's also a spring there, and when I get done describing the hike, I'll say a little bit more about the shelter. After that, I continue to climb the mountain. This is Loft Mountain, up to here, and this is the Appalachian Trail. So you turn right and continue to climb the mountain. Now, the summit of Loft Mountain is here, but you'll notice the trail doesn't actually go over the summit, but you get up to this point right here, and this is close to summit elevation, up around 3,200 feet. And off to the east, there's an overlook here, looking off to the east. So I checked that out. And then between here and here, I point out two or three different potential camp spots up there. When you get to here, there are two more overlooks looking off to the west. And then after that, you continue on the Appalachian Trail for a ways, and you descend, and then you have to ascend again until you get to here. Now, down here off the map is the Loft Mountain campground. Now, Loft Mountain is here. The campground is actually on Big Flat Mountain, but apparently the marketing people thought that Loft Mountain campground sounded better, so they built a campground down here on Big Flat Mountain, and they called it Loft Mountain Campground. So kind of strange. When you get to here on the AT, you'll see a signpost that says Loft Mountain Campstore. You turn right and you come up a hill, and the Campstore's right here. Now the rest of the campground, if you follow this road to the south and up and continue to climb the mountain, you can go check out the campground here. But I turned right and followed. There's a trail that comes down the mountain. It parallels the access road. Here's the access road to the campground, and right next to it is this trail coming on down. When I got to here, I pointed out the water tower off to the left and continue on down back to my car right here. So it turned out to be 4.3 miles and just a very moderate amount of ascent, 783 feet. So I realize I don't have all my material about the shelter, so let me go get that and I'll restart the video in a minute. The Ivy Creek shelter was a replacement shelter for this one. This was Big Flat Shelter. It was put up on Big Flat Mountain before the campground was built there. And I've got two pictures that I downloaded from the PATC website. I believe this is an earlier picture showing the back side of it. And if you take a look, you'll notice there's very few trees in this picture. Most of the mountain is clear. So that's one picture of the shelter. Here's another picture of it. I believe this one is a more recent picture because notice there's a lot more trees. Now this is taken from a different angle, but you'll notice that there's more trees grown up there. So that's another picture of the Big Flat Shelter. Now this is what I could find on that. The Big Flat Shelter was built, well I said Loft Mountain, but really it was Big Flat Mountain. It was built there in the early 1940s. Around 1964, it was decided to put a campground there, so the shelter got taken out so they could build the campground. They also forced PATC to reroute the Appalachian Trail around the campground. So they put up the campground around 1964 and took down Big Flat Shelter. And then in 1965, they built the Ivy Creek Shelter. Now that was actually built on Loft Mountain where I showed you on the map. And that's about 1.5 miles north of the campground. Now in the 1970s, after Skyline Drive got put in, they had a situation where there was a number of these shelters that were real close to Skyline Drive. You know, just a couple of tenths of a mile, easy to get to. And I think they turned into party shelters. And it turned into a real problem for the Park Service. So in the 70s sometime, they closed all these shelters. And then some years later, they reopened most of them, but not all of them. And Ivy Creek was one of the ones. It's pretty close to Skyline Drive. It's only I don't know if you in my video. It's probably less than 1/2 mile from Skyline Drive, so it's easy to get to up a service road. And it looks like what they did was they converted it from a shelter into a maintenance depot for PATC trail maintainers. So that's a little history on Big Flat Shelter, which doesn't exist anymore, and also Ivy Creek Shelter, which is still there, but it's not used as a shelter. It's a maintenance depot now.